Now let's begin. Dean Alexander pressed his thumb against the phone screen, watching the loading circle spin for the third time that morning. The conference room's fluorescent lights hummed overhead as his colleagues debated quarterly projections, their voices fading into white noise. He was an architectural engineer, and this Chicago meeting was supposed to secure the firm's biggest contract yet, a sustainable housing development worth $40 million. His phone buzzed. Terry Walters, his coworker back at the Denver office. "Hey man, weird question, isn't this your kid?" The attached link made Dean's stomach drop before he even clicked it. The video loaded in fragments, a wooden chicken coop, straw scattered on concrete, and then his 7-year-old son Kyle's face, streaked with tears and egg yolk. His mother-in-law Doris Doherty stood outside the wire mesh, her phone in one hand, an egg in the other. Her voice carried that sickeningly sweet tone she used when she thought she was being clever. "Come on, Kyle. Learn to catch, or you don't eat dinner. Survivors adapt." Kyle's small hands reached through the gaps, trembling. "Grandma, please stop. I'm sorry. I'll be better." An egg exploded against his shoulder. The phone camera, Stacy's phone, Dean realized with horror, captured Kyle flinching, his Superman t-shirt now ruined. The video had been edited with bouncy music, cartoon sound effects when the eggs hit. Text overlay. Teaching resilience the old-school way, flexed biceps egg. 2.3 million views. Dean scrolled to the comments, his hands shaking. His wife's profile picture beamed up at him, her comment pinned at the top. "Parenting goals faced with tears of joy. This generation is too soft. Mother knows best." Raising hands. Hundreds of laughing emojis. Thousands of shares. People calling it hilarious and genius parenting. Others calling it abuse, threatening to call CPS. His son's humiliation broadcast to the world like entertainment. Dean stood so abruptly his chair scraped against the floor. 6 faces turned toward him, including the clients. "I apologize. Family emergency." He was already moving toward the door, not waiting for a response, his phone pressed to his ear. Stacy didn't answer. Neither did Doris. He tried the home phone, straight to voicemail. Dean's hands gripped the steering wheel of his rented Tahoe as Illinois farmland blurred past. He'd left the conference room 20 minutes ago, grabbed his bag from the hotel, and pointed the GPS toward Denver. 6 hours and 43 minutes. He could do it in 5.5 if he pushed it. His mind raced through the past 6 months, connecting dots he'd been too busy, or too willfully blind, to see. The architectural firm had expanded, and he'd taken on project management duties that required frequent travel. 2, sometimes 3 weeks away per month. Good money. Great opportunities. Stacy had encouraged it, actually. "We'll be fine," she'd said. "Mom's here to help." Doris had moved into their Boulder home 8 months ago after claiming she couldn't afford her apartment anymore. Dean had hesitated. His mother-in-law had always rubbed him wrong. The way she criticized everything he did, how she'd undermined him with Kyle since the boy was born. But Stacy had insisted, and Dean had relented, telling himself it was temporary. The signs had been there. Kyle's behavior had changed. The bright, talkative kid who'd once run to him with drawings and stories had become quiet, almost timid. When Dean FaceTimed home, Kyle barely spoke. "He's tired," Stacy would say, or "he's playing." But in the background, Dean sometimes heard Doris's sharp voice, her cutting criticisms. Last month, Kyle had a bruise on his arm. "Fell off his bike," Stacy explained. 2 weeks ago, Kyle had flinched when Dean reached to hug him. "You're spooking him coming in so fast," Stacy had laughed it off. Dean's phone buzzed with notifications. He glanced down at a red light. The video had been up for 6 hours. 6 hours of his son's abuse monetized for clicks. His wife's TikTok account, which she'd started last year documenting their perfect family life, now had 340,000 followers. This video was going viral. He opened the account with one hand, scrolling through recent posts as traffic started moving again. His blood went cold. Morning routine military style showed Kyle doing push-ups at 6 a.m. while Doris barked orders. No dinner until math is perfect featured Kyle crying over flashcards at the kitchen table. Cold water builds character was Kyle being sprayed with a garden hose for talking back. Hundreds of videos. Millions of views total. Comments ranged from supportive, "Finally someone raising a strong man," to horrified, "This is child abuse." His wife responded to criticism with laugh emojis and blocked users. Dean's jaw clenched so hard his teeth ached. He'd been gone, building a future for his family, while his wife and her mother turned his son's suffering into social media content. His phone rang. Stacy. He let it go to voicemail. Then Doris called. Voicemail. Then Stacy again. He blocked them both and kept driving. Interstate 76 stretched ahead through Nebraska plains. Dean's mind shifted from shock to calculation. He wasn't just a father racing home. He was an engineer, someone who solved complex problems with systematic thinking. This situation required precision. First priority, get Kyle safe. Second, documentation. Third, make sure Stacy and Doris faced real consequences. The kind that would stick. He called his brother-in-law, Ross Albright, married to Stacy's younger sister Jamie. Ross answered on the first ring. Dean? Man, have you seen? I've seen it. Ross, I need you to be honest with me. How long has this been going on? Silence. Then, quietly, Jamie and I stopped coming over about 3 months ago. We tried to talk to Stacy about it, but she said we were being sensitive. Doris told us to mind our own business. Jamie wanted to call someone, but we didn't know if we were overreacting. You weren't. Dean's voice was flat, controlled. I'm 5 hours out. Can you meet me at the house? Absolutely. Dean, I'm sorry we didn't. Just be there. The sun was setting when Dean crossed into Colorado, painting the Rockies in orange and purple. His phone showed 67 missed calls from Stacy and Doris. Text messages flooded in. Where are you? You need to calm down. Don't do anything stupid. We can explain. People are threatening us. We need you home now. Dean didn't respond to any of them. He pulled into his driveway at 11:47 p.m., his headlights illuminating the 2-story house he'd bought 4 years ago. The lights were all on. Stacy's white Range Rover sat in the garage, Doris's sedan beside it. Ross's truck was parked across the street, and Ross stood on the lawn, phone in hand. They've been looking out the window every 5 minutes, Ross said as Dean approached. They know you're coming. Dean nodded, his face expressionless. Is Kyle asleep? I don't know. I just got here 15 minutes ago. Dean walked to his front door and used his key. It didn't work. They'd changed the locks. He rang the doorbell. Stacy opened the door, her face a mixture of defiance and worry. She'd clearly been crying, her mascara smudged. Behind her, Doris stood with her arms crossed, chin raised. Even now, caught red-handed, she looked imperious. Dean, thank God you're. He walked past Stacy without a word, heading straight for the stairs. Where is Kyle? He's asleep. Dean, we need to talk about. Where is Kyle? Doris stepped forward. Now you listen here, young man. You don't come into this house with that tone. We've been handling things just fine while you've been gallivanting. Dean turned to face her, and something in his expression made her step back. You locked my son in a cage and threw eggs at him for entertainment. You filmed it. You put it online. And you, he turned to Stacy. You called it parenting goals. Stacy's face flushed. It wasn't like that. We were teaching him resilience. Kids these days are so coddled, and I have followers who agree. Your followers watched you abuse a child. It wasn't abuse. Stacy's voice rose, shrill. My mother raised me with discipline, and I turned out fine. You're never here, Dean. You don't see how defiant he's gotten. How soft. Which room? Stacy's mouth snapped shut. Dean moved toward the stairs, and she grabbed his arm. Don't you wake him up. He finally calmed down after all the mean comments people sent. Do you know what we've been dealing with? People are calling us monsters. Someone found our address, and Dean removed her hand from his arm and climbed the stairs 2 at a time. Kyle's room was at the end of the hall, the door covered with his drawings and a nameplate Dean had carved when Kyle was 3. Dean opened it quietly. The nightlight shaped like a rocket ship cast a soft glow across the small room. Kyle was curled under his blankets, his dark hair, Dean's hair, tousled against the pillow. Dean approached and gently pulled back the covers. His son was wearing long-sleeve pajamas despite it being summer. Dean carefully rolled up the sleeve. Bruises. Finger-shaped marks on his upper arm. Another set on his other arm. Dean checked Kyle's legs. More bruises. Some fresh, some yellowing, different stages of healing. This had been going on for a while. Kyle stirred, his eyes fluttering open. For a moment, he looked confused, then fearful. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. He stopped, focusing on Dean's face. Dad. Hey, buddy. Kyle's face crumpled, and he threw his arms around Dean's neck, sobbing. Dad, I'm sorry. I'll be better. I'll be stronger. Please don't let Grandma. Chill. It's okay. You're okay now. I try to catch the eggs, but they throw them too fast, and my hands are too small, and... Kyle, listen to me. Dean pulled back to look his son in the eyes. None of this is your fault. Do you understand? You did nothing wrong. Kyle's lower lip trembled. Mom said I embarrassed her. She said I made her look bad by crying on camera. Dean felt something cold settle in his chest, sharp and immovable as ice. Get dressed, buddy. Pack some clothes and your favorite things. We're leaving. Where are we going? Somewhere safe. Trust me. Kyle nodded, wiping his eyes. As he started pulling clothes from his drawers, Dean took photos of every bruise with his phone. Evidence. He carried Kyle's backpack downstairs. Stacy and Doris were in the living room, Stacy pacing while talking rapidly on her phone. Yes, I'm telling you it's being blown out of proportion. It was just a video. People are so sensitive. She looked up as Dean descended with Kyle behind him, the boy clutching his worn stuffed rabbit. What are you doing? We're leaving. You are not taking my son. Our son. And yes, I am. Doris moved to block the door. You can't just waltz in here, and... Dean pulled out his phone and held it up, showing the photos of Kyle's bruises. I have documentation of physical abuse. I have a viral video of you psychologically tormenting a child. I have months of content showing systematic cruelty. You want to make this a fight? Try me. Stacy's face went white. Those bruises are from playing. Kids get bruises. Finger-shaped bruises and grips. On his upper arms and thighs. A judge will be very interested in these. So will the police. You wouldn't dare, Doris hissed. Do you know what this will do to our reputation? To Stacy's platform? We've built something here. You built it on my son's pain. Dean's voice was quiet, deadly. Move. Neither woman moved. Ross appeared in the doorway behind them. Ladies, I suggest you step aside. Stacy looked between them, her expression shifting from defiance to calculation. Dean, wait. Let's talk about this rationally. Yes, maybe we got a little carried away with the content, but we can fix this. Delete the videos. Issue an apology. We're family. We were family. You made a choice when you locked a 7-year-old in a cage for clicks. Where will you even go? You travel constantly. You can't take care of him alone. Watch me. Dean walked toward the door with Kyle's hand in his. And this time, both women moved aside. But as he reached the threshold, Stacy grabbed his arm again, her voice dropping to an urgent whisper. If you leave with him, I'll tell everyone you abandoned us. That you were never here, never cared. I have followers, Dean. Millions of people who trust me. Who do you think they'll believe? Dean looked at her, really looked at her, and wondered how he'd ever thought she was the woman he'd fallen in love with. Tell them whatever you want. I have the truth, and I have our son. That's all that matters. He walked out into the night, Kyle's small hand in his, Ross following behind them. The door slammed shut, and through the window, he could see Stacy and Doris arguing frantically. His phone buzzed with another message. Please, Dean, don't do this. We can work it out. I love you. Dean deleted it and kept walking. The hotel room smelled like industrial cleaner and stale coffee, but it was clean and quiet, and Kyle was asleep in the bed closest to the door. Dean sat at the small desk, his laptop open, systematically downloading every video from Stacy's TikTok account before she could delete them. Each one made his chest tighter. Ross had gone home an hour ago, promising to talk to a lawyer friend first thing in the morning. Dean had 4 days before his next meeting, which he'd already canceled. His boss hadn't been happy, but Dean didn't care. Some things mattered more than contracts. At 3 a.m., Dean finally closed the laptop and rubbed his eyes. Tomorrow would start the real work. Lawyer consultations, possibly police reports, definitely custody filings. But tonight, he'd gotten his son out. That was step one. Kyle stirred in his sleep, making a small sound of distress. Dean moved to sit on the edge of the bed, placing a gentle hand on his son's shoulder until the boy settled. I've got you, Dean whispered, and I'm going to make sure this never happens again. Outside, Denver slept, but Dean's mind was already planning, calculating, preparing for the war that was coming. Stacy and Doris had made a critical mistake. They'd documented everything. They'd been so confident in their righteousness, so assured their followers would support them, that they'd created a perfect archive of their own abuse. Dean would use every frame of it. Morning came with harsh sunlight through thin curtains. Kyle woke slowly, confused for a moment before remembering where he was. Dean ordered room service, pancakes and orange juice, Kyle's favorites, and watched his son eat carefully, still jumpy, when Dean moved too quickly. Are we going back? Kyle asked quietly. Not to stay. We'll need to get more of your things eventually, but no, we're not living there anymore. Relief washed over Kyle's face, followed quickly by worry. Is Mom mad at me? Nothing that happened is your fault, Kyle. Remember that. They spent the morning watching cartoons, something Kyle said he hadn't been allowed to do in months. Grandma said they rot your brain, he explained. And Mom was always filming her morning routine stuff. Dean's phone had been buzzing steadily. He'd turned off notifications, but he checked periodically. Stacy had posted an emotional video at 6 a.m., herself crying, makeup-free, talking about how cruel the internet had been to her family. My husband left in the middle of the night and took our son, she sobbed to the camera. I'm trying to be strong, but I don't know what I did wrong. Motherhood is so hard, and people are so quick to judge. The comments were divided. Her loyal followers rallied around her with heart emojis and supportive messages. But others had found the older videos, the ones showing Kyle's distress, and they weren't buying her victim act. Dean screenshot everything. At noon, Ross called. I talked to my friend, Jeffrey O'Connor. He's a family law attorney, good one. He can see you tomorrow at 9 a.m. Tomorrow? Can't we do today? Dean, it's Saturday. He's making an exception, even seeing you on Sunday. In the meantime, he said document everything. Photos of Kyle's bruises, copies of all the videos, any witnesses who've seen concerning behavior. I'll need to talk to Kyle about what happened. Get his account. Ross hesitated. Jeffrey said, be careful how you do that. Leading questions can be a problem in court. Maybe let him tell you naturally. After they hung up, Dean ordered more food and sat with Kyle on the couch. Buddy, I need to understand what's been happening at home. But I'm not mad at you, no matter what you tell me. Okay. Kyle nodded slowly, picking at a thread on his jeans. When did things start getting bad? After Grandma moved in. At first it was just rules. Lots of rules. About how to sit, how to talk, when I could play. Mom said Grandma knew best because she raised her right. Kyle's voice got smaller. Then Grandma said I was too soft. That boys need to be tough. She started making me do push-ups if I cried. Then more stuff. What kind of stuff? Cold showers if I complained. Standing in the corner for hours if I talked back. Mom thought it was funny at first. Then she started filming it for her TikTok. Kyle looked up at Dean with those wide, dark eyes. I thought maybe if I was good enough, she'd stop. But nothing was ever good enough. Dean's hands clenched into fists on his knees. Did they ever tell you not to tell me? Grandma said you wouldn't believe me. That you'd think I was making it up because I'm weak. And Mom said, Kyle's voice cracked. Mom said if I told you, you'd leave both of us. The manipulation went deeper than Dean had realized. They'd isolated Kyle, made him believe he had no way out, no one to trust. All while broadcasting his torment for entertainment. I believe you, Dean said firmly. And I'm never leaving you. We're going to fix this. Kyle leaned against Dean's side, and they sat like that for a while, the TV playing softly in the background. Dean's phone rang. Unknown number. He answered. Mr. Alexander? This is Mandy Payne from Child Protective Services. We received several reports regarding a video involving your son. The CPS office was beige and bureaucratic, with motivational posters about family safety that felt hollow given the circumstances. Mandy Payne was a tired-looking woman in her 40s with kind eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. She interviewed Kyle separately while Dean waited in the hallway, his leg bouncing with nervous energy. After 45 minutes, she emerged with Kyle, who looked exhausted. Mr. Alexander, can we talk in my office? Dean followed her into a small room cluttered with case files. Mandy closed the door and sat heavily in her chair. Your son confirmed what we saw in the videos. He also disclosed additional concerning behaviors, isolation from peers, excessive physical punishment disguised as discipline, emotional manipulation. I'm opening a formal investigation. What does that mean? It means we'll be interviewing your wife and her mother, documenting evidence. Given what we've seen in Kyle's testimony, I'm recommending emergency custody remain with you pending the investigation. Relief and anger warred in Dean's chest. How long does this take? Could be weeks, could be months. Family courts move slowly. She leaned forward. Mr. Alexander, I need to be frank with you. Your wife has a significant social media presence. She's already crafting a narrative where she's the victim. These cases can get messy, especially when there's public attention. I have evidence. Months of videos showing abuse. That will help. But you should prepare yourself. She'll fight this. And she has resources. Mandy's expression softened slightly. That said, from what I've seen today, you're doing the right thing. Keep documenting everything. Get a good lawyer. And keep Kyle stable and safe. Dean left the CPS office with Kyle in tow and a folder full of papers that detailed the investigation process. His phone showed 32 new messages from Stacy, progressing from pleading to angry to threatening. The last one read, "You've made a huge mistake. I'm going to destroy you." Dean showed it to Jeffrey O'Connor the next morning in his downtown office. The attorney, a sharp-eyed man in his 50s with gray temples, read it with raised eyebrows. "She's not helping her case," Jeffrey said. "Send me everything. The videos, the text messages, photos of Kyle's injuries, the CPS report. I'm going to file for an emergency protective order and temporary full custody." How strong is my case? Very. Viral video evidence of child abuse, CPS involvement, documented injuries, witness statements from your brother-in-law. Unless your wife has something equally damning on you. She doesn't. Then we're in good shape. But Dean, I need to warn you. This is going to get ugly. Your wife will try to drag your name through the mud. She'll claim you were negligent for being away so much, that you're vindictive, that you're keeping Kyle from his mother. Are you prepared for that? Dean thought of Kyle flinching from his touch, of egg yolk dripping down his son's face, of bruises shaped like his wife's fingers. I'm prepared to do whatever it takes. Jeffrey nodded approvingly. Good. Let's bury them. The next 3 weeks moved in a blur of legal proceedings, investigator interviews, and media attention that Dean hadn't anticipated. Stacy's viral video had caught the attention of parenting bloggers, news outlets, and social media commentary channels. The debate raged online. Was it tough love or abuse? Was Stacy a victim of cancel culture or a child abuser? Dean stayed off social media, focusing on Kyle. They'd moved into a temporary apartment, a 2-bedroom place in a quiet neighborhood with good schools. Kyle started therapy twice a week with a child psychologist recommended by CPS. Slowly, carefully, the boy began to open up about the full extent of what he'd endured. Ross and Jamie became regular fixtures, helping with childcare when Dean had to meet with lawyers. Jamie cried when she saw Kyle's bruises, apologizing repeatedly for not acting sooner. "We should have called someone," she said, voice thick with guilt. "You're helping now," Dean assured her. "That's what matters." The court date for the emergency protective order came on a gray Tuesday morning. Dean dressed in his best suit, made sure Kyle looked presentable in case the judge wanted to see him. Jeffrey met them at the courthouse steps. Stacy's attorney filed a counterclaim, Jeffrey said. Alienation of affection, claiming you're poisoning Kyle against his mother. It's standard procedure, nothing to worry about. Inside the courtroom, Dean saw Stacy for the first time since that night. She dressed conservatively, a navy blue dress, minimal makeup, her hair pulled back. Playing the part of the concerned mother. Doris sat behind her, stone-faced. The hearing lasted 2 hours. Jeffrey presented the videos, the photographs, Kyle's testimony to CPS, statements from Ross and Jamie. Stacy's attorney, a slick man named Vince Clements, argued that the videos were taken out of context, that Stacy was following a legitimate parenting philosophy, that Dean's sudden departure was evidence of an unstable temperament. Judge Sally Hess, a stern woman in her 60s, watched the videos with an increasingly tight expression. When the chicken coop video played, Stacy visibly cringed. After reviewing all evidence, Judge Hess removed her glasses and fixed Stacy with a hard stare. "Mrs. Alexander, I've been a family court judge for 23 years. I've seen many forms of discipline, many parenting styles. What I've seen in these videos is not discipline. It's systematic humiliation and physical abuse." Stacy opened her mouth to protest, but Judge Hess cut her off with a raised hand. "I'm granting the emergency protective order. Mr. Dean Alexander is awarded temporary full custody pending the completion of the CPS investigation. Mrs. Alexander, you may have supervised visitation 1 hour per week at a location to be determined by CPS. Your mother, Mrs. Doherty, is to have no contact with the minor child whatsoever." Doris shot to her feet. "You can't. Mrs. Doherty, sit down before I hold you in contempt." "Bailiff, we're adjourned." Dean exhaled a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. Stacy was crying. Whether from genuine emotion or performance, He couldn't tell anymore. She tried to approach him as they left the courtroom. "Dean, please. Can we talk? Alone?" Jeffrey stepped between them smoothly. "All communication goes through me, Mrs. Alexander. I'm his wife, and he has a protective order. Unless you want to add violation of a court order to your problems, I suggest you leave." Stacy's face crumpled, and Vince Clements ushered her away quickly. But as Dean left the courthouse, he caught Doris's expression across the lobby. It wasn't sadness or regret. It was pure, cold fury. That night, Dean's phone rang from another unknown number. Against his better judgment, he answered. "You think you've won?" Doris's voice was venomous. "You've destroyed this family, turned everyone against Stacy. She gave you everything. She gave me a traumatized son covered in bruises. He needed discipline. Boys need structure, rules, consequences. But you wouldn't understand that, would you? You were never there. Stacy was doing your job. By locking him in a cage? By making him strong. You're raising him to be weak, just like you. And when this all comes out, when people see what you've done, no one will support you. Stacy has hundreds of thousands of followers. Who watched her abuse a child? I'm done with this conversation." Dean hung up and blocked the number. But Doris's words echoed. Stacy did have a massive platform, and she was using it. Her latest videos painted Dean as a controlling husband who'd brainwashed Kyle, who'd always resented Doris's presence, who'd manipulated the legal system against an innocent mother. It was working too. Dean started getting hate messages, people finding his work email, his LinkedIn. Someone posted his new address online, though Jeffrey was already working to get it removed. "This is harassment," Jeffrey said when Dean showed him the messages. "Document all of it. We can use it to show a pattern of behavior." But Dean had a different idea forming. Stacy and Doris thought they could win through public opinion, through their online following. They'd built their platform on lies and performance. What if he used that same platform to expose the truth? He called Terry Walters, his coworker who'd first sent him the video. "Terry, you're good with social media, right? Marketing stuff?" "Yeah, why?" "I need your help with something. It's going to be unconventional." The apartment was quiet except for Kyle's soft breathing from his bedroom. Dean sat at the kitchen table with his laptop, Terry on video call, as they planned what Terry was calling digital warfare. "You want to fight fire with fire," Terry said. "Use the internet against them the way they used it against Kyle." "Exactly. They've been controlling the narrative. Time to change that." Terry cracked his knuckles. "Okay, here's what we do. First, we create a website. A central location with all the evidence, the videos, the court documents, Kyle's testimony in age-appropriate form. Everything in one place so people can see the full story, not just Stacy's edited version. Will people actually look at it? If we promote it right. Second step, we reach out to content creators who've already been critical of Stacy's videos. Family therapists, child psychologists, other parents. Give them the full context and let them amplify the truth." Dean nodded slowly. "What about going on the offensive? She's been posting lies about me." "That's step 3. We do a video interview. You, telling your side. Maybe even show Kyle's drawings from therapy, the timeline of what happened. Make it impossible for people to ignore the facts." Terry paused. "Dean, are you sure about this? Once you put it out there, it's permanent." "She made my son's abuse permanent by posting it online. I'm just providing context." They worked until 3 a.m., building the website, compiling evidence, reaching out to creators who'd expressed concern about Stacy's content. By the end of the week, they had a plan. The website went live on a Sunday morning. The truth about Kyle's story. It was simple, factual, devastating. Every video from Stacy's TikTok that showed abuse, organized chronologically. Photos of Kyle's bruises with dates. The court order granting Dean custody. Statements from CPS, with Kyle's name redacted as legally required. A timeline showing how the abuse escalated. At the top, a simple statement from Dean, "My name is Dean Alexander. 3 weeks ago, I discovered that my wife and mother-in-law had been systematically abusing my 7-year-old son and broadcasting it online for entertainment. This is the full story." Terry shared the link with a network of parenting bloggers and child advocacy accounts. Within hours, it started spreading. Child psychologists quoted it in their commentary. News articles that had been neutral or even sympathetic to Stacy suddenly included, "However, new evidence has emerged." Disclaimers. Stacy's carefully crafted victim narrative crumbled. Dean received a call from Carrie Harmon, a popular child development expert with 3 million YouTube subscribers. Mr. Alexander, I'd like to interview you. Nothing sensational, just the facts. Would you be willing? Yes. But I have conditions. Nothing that shows Kyle's face. Nothing that uses his full name. This is about holding the abusers accountable, not exploiting him further. Absolutely. I completely agree. The interview filmed on a Wednesday afternoon. Dean sat in Carrie's studio, calm and composed, as he walked through the timeline of events. He didn't embellish. He didn't need to. The facts were damning enough. What do you want people to understand? Carrie asked near the end. That child abuse doesn't always look like what we expect. Sometimes it's disguised as discipline. Sometimes it's broadcast for likes and shares. And sometimes, people who should know better participate because they want to believe in a perfect parenting image rather than confront an ugly truth. The interview went live Friday evening. By Saturday morning, it had 4 million views. Stacy's TikTok account was suspended for violating community guidelines. Her Instagram faced mass reports. Sponsors who'd been working with her for promotional content dropped her immediately. The court of public opinion, which she'd counted on to support her, had turned completely. Dean's phone rang Sunday night. Vince Clements, Stacy's attorney. My client wants to negotiate. The mediation session took place in Jeffrey's office, a neutral space with a large conference table and walls of legal books. Stacy sat across from Dean, looking nothing like the polished influencer she'd been. Her hair was unwashed, dark circles under her eyes. Doris wasn't present. Jeffrey had made it clear she had no place in these negotiations. Mrs. Alexander has a proposal, Vince began. She's willing to agree to Dean having primary physical custody. She wants joint legal custody with regular visitation, unmonitored. No, Dean said flatly. Dean, please, Stacy's voice cracked. He's my son too. I know I made mistakes. Mistakes? You locked him in a cage. I was following advice. There are parenting experts who recommend tough discipline. My mother convinced me. Your mother didn't force you to film it. Didn't force you to post it. Didn't force you to laugh at your son's pain in the comments. Dean leaned forward. You chose this, Stacy. Every step of the way, you chose your followers over Kyle's well-being. Tears streamed down Stacy's face. I was lost, okay? After you started traveling so much, I felt abandoned. My mom moved in, and she seemed so sure of everything. The TikTok blew up, and suddenly I had this identity, this community. I got caught up in it. That's an explanation, not an excuse. Jeffrey cleared his throat. My client's position is clear. Sole legal and physical custody to Dean. Stacy may have supervised visitation once weekly, building up to unsupervised over the course of 2 years if, and only if she completes parenting classes, continues therapy, and Kyle's therapist approves. Doris Doherty has no contact whatsoever. That's not fair, Vince protested. A mother has rights. A child has the right to safety, Jeffrey countered. Your client's behavior is documented. If this goes to trial, she'll lose more than custody. Criminal charges for child abuse are still on the table. CPS hasn't completed their investigation. The district attorney's office has been reviewing the evidence. Stacy went pale. Criminal charges? But I didn't mean to actually hurt him. Intent doesn't matter when a child is harmed, Jeffrey said coldly. What matters is that he was harmed, repeatedly, while you profited from it. The mediation continued for 3 hours. Stacy tried various angles, claiming she'd been manipulated by Doris, saying she'd been suffering from postpartum depression delayed by years, insisting she'd changed and deserved another chance. But every argument crumbled against the weight of evidence. Finally, exhausted, Stacy agreed to the terms. Dean got full custody. She would have 1 supervised visit per week, 30 minutes initially, with potential to increase if Kyle's therapist recommended it. She would complete mandatory parenting classes and undergo therapy. She would make no public statements about the case and would not post about Kyle on any social media platform. And she would pay Dean's legal fees. What about my mother? Stacy asked quietly. Your mother faces a separate civil suit for emotional distress and physical harm to Kyle, Jeffrey said. She's also likely to face criminal charges. But that's not part of this agreement. Stacy signed the papers with shaking hands. As they prepared to leave, she looked at Dean one last time. Do you hate me? Dean considered the question. No, but I don't recognize you anymore. The woman I married would never have done this. I'm sorry. For all of it. Tell Kyle. Kyle will hear from you during supervised visits, if he chooses to see you at all. Until then, leave him alone. They left the building separately. Dean stood in the parking lot for a long moment, feeling the Denver autumn air on his face. It was over, the legal part, at least. The healing would take longer. 4 months later, Dean sat in Kyle's new therapist's office, Dr. Molly Bates, a gentle woman who specialized in childhood trauma. Kyle was in the waiting room, drawing with the art supplies Dr. Bates kept there. He's making remarkable progress, Dr. Bates said, reviewing her notes. The nightmares have decreased. He's more willing to express emotions. He's even started talking about his mother without the immediate anxiety response. Does he want to see her? He's curious, which is natural, but I'd recommend starting very slowly. Maybe a letter exchange first, supervised. Let Kyle control the pace. Dean nodded. Stacy had been attending her mandated therapy and parenting classes. Her therapist reported significant progress, genuine remorse, understanding of how her actions had harmed Kyle. But Dean wasn't ready to trust that yet. What about Doris? Dr. Bates asked. Trial starts next month. Assault of a minor, child endangerment, emotional abuse. Her attorney is trying for a plea deal. How do you feel about that? Dean considered. I want her to face consequences. Real ones. But more than that, I want Kyle to feel safe. If that means she goes to prison, fine. If that means she just stays far away from us forever, that's fine too. Dr. Bates smiled. You've done an extraordinary job, Dean. Not every parent would have acted so decisively to protect their child. I should have seen it sooner. You saw it when you could. That's what matters. She leaned forward. Kyle talks about you in sessions. Do you know what he says? That you're his hero. That you came and saved him. Dean felt his throat tighten. I'm just his dad. Exactly. In the waiting room, Kyle was adding finishing touches to a drawing. When Dean emerged, Kyle held it up proudly. It showed 2 stick figures, one tall, one small, holding hands in front of a house. The sun was shining. Both figures were smiling. That's us in our new place, Kyle explained. After we're done with the apartment and get a real house. I love it, buddy. Dean ruffled Kyle's hair. Ready to grab lunch? Can we get burgers? Absolutely. As they walked to the car, Kyle slipped his hand into Dean's. It was such a simple gesture, but it meant everything. No flinching. No fear. Just trust. Dean's phone buzzed. A text from Ross. Doris rejected the plea deal. Going to trial. Her lawyer must be insane. Dean smiled grimly. Let it go to trial. Let a jury hear Kyle's testimony. Let them see the videos, the evidence, the calculated cruelty. Doris wanted to fight? He'd give her one. But that was a problem for another day. Right now, Dean had a lunch date with his son. The trial took place in late November, the courthouse steps slick with early snow. Dean had taken a leave of absence from work. The firm had been understanding, especially after the case became public. His colleagues had sent supportive messages, and his boss had assured him his job would be waiting when he was ready. Doris looked smaller than Dean remembered, her imperious bearing eroded by legal pressure and public condemnation. She'd lost her apartment, her car repossessed. Stacy had cut off contact with her completely, following through on her therapy work. The prosecution called Kyle to testify in chambers, away from the public, with Dr. Bates present. Dean waited in the hallway, Ross beside him. How's he holding up? Ross asked. Better than I expected. Dr. Bates has been preparing him for weeks. He knows he's safe, that no matter what happens, Doris can't hurt him again. After 90 minutes, the door opened. Kyle emerged with Dr. Bates, looking tired but steady. He walked straight to Dean and hugged him tight. I did it, Dad. I told them everything. I'm so proud of you. The trial continued for 3 days. Medical experts testified about Kyle's injuries. Child psychologists explained the long-term impact of the type of systematic abuse he'd endured. Ross and Jamie testified about what they'd witnessed. The videos played in the courtroom, each one more damning than the last. Doris's defense was weak. Her attorney tried to argue she'd been following legitimate parenting methods, that she believed she was helping Kyle become stronger. But the prosecution had expert witnesses who dismantled every claim. On the 3rd day, Dean was called to testify. He walked through discovering the video, driving home, finding the bruises, everything since. Doris's attorney tried to make him seem vindictive, questioned whether he was exaggerating for his own custody benefit. Mr. Alexander, isn't it true that you were barely present in your son's life? That you traveled constantly? I traveled for work to support my family financially. I regret that I didn't see what was happening sooner, but I acted the moment I knew. You also destroyed your wife's career, her reputation. I exposed abuse. She destroyed her own reputation by committing it and broadcasting it online. Dean looked directly at the jury. I'm not proud that I missed the signs, but I am proud that when I finally saw what was happening, I did everything in my power to protect my son. That's what parents are supposed to do. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. When they returned, the verdict was unanimous on all counts. Guilty. Sentencing came a week later. Judge Alfonso Núñez, a stern man with 2 decades on the bench, reviewed the evidence and Kyle's victim impact statement, written with Dr. Bates's help, expressing how the abuse had affected him. Mrs. Doherty, you had a position of trust and authority over a vulnerable child. You exploited that position for your own purposes, causing significant physical and psychological harm. This court takes child abuse very seriously. He looked down at his papers. I hereby sentence you to 4 years in state prison, followed by 5 years of probation during which you will have no contact with the minor victim. You are also ordered to pay restitution for Kyle's therapy and medical expenses. Doris's face crumpled. She turned to look at Dean, and for the first time, he saw not fury but broken understanding of what she'd lost. Dean felt no satisfaction in her tears, just a grim relief that Kyle would be protected. Christmas came with snow and a sense of peace Dean hadn't felt in years. They'd moved into a small house in a good neighborhood, 3 bedrooms, a yard where Kyle could play. Dean had taken a position with less travel, project managing from the Denver office instead of going on-site. The pay was slightly less, but seeing Kyle every night was worth infinitely more. Kyle was thriving. His confidence was returning, his smile more frequent. He'd made friends at his new school and joined a soccer team. The nightmares still came occasionally, but less often now. On Christmas morning, Kyle tore into presents with the enthusiasm of a normal 7-year-old, not the scared, quiet boy Dean had rescued 7 months ago. Dad, a telescope. This is so cool. Kyle hugged the box. Can we use it tonight? Absolutely. Ross and Jamie came over for dinner, bringing gifts and laughter. Jamie had become a regular presence, a positive female role model for Kyle. She'd apologized repeatedly for not acting sooner, and Dean had finally convinced her that helping now was what mattered. Any word from Stacy? Jamie asked quietly while Kyle showed Ross his telescope in the other room. She sends letters. Kyle reads some of them, not all. He's not ready to see her yet, and I'm not pushing it. Is she? Jamie struggled with the words. Is she really sorry? I think so. But sorry doesn't undo the damage. Kyle will decide if and when he wants a relationship with her. That's his choice to make. Later, after Ross and Jamie left, Dean and Kyle set up the telescope in the backyard. The night was clear and cold, stars brilliant against the black sky. Dad, Kyle asked as they searched for constellations. Are you happy? Dean looked at his son, healthy, healing, safe, and felt a wave of emotion. Yeah, buddy. I am. Are you? Kyle considered the question seriously. Most of the time. Sometimes I still get sad about Mom. Dr. Bates says that's okay. It is okay. You can love someone and still need to be away from them if they hurt you. Do you still love Mom? Dean had wondered when this question would come. I loved who I thought she was. But people can change, and sometimes those changes mean we can't be together anymore. That doesn't mean I regret having you. You're the best thing that ever happened to me. Kyle smiled and returned to the telescope. They stayed out until nearly midnight, finding planets and satellites, naming stars, just being together. Inside, Dean's phone showed a final text from Jeffrey. All paperwork finalized. Full custody permanent. Congratulations. Dean deleted the message and joined Kyle at the telescope. The legal battles were over. The healing would continue. But right now, in this moment, they had peace. A year later, Dean stood at Kyle's school science fair, watching his son explain his solar system project to impress judges. Kyle had built a detailed model, complete with orbiting planets and fun facts about each one. He spoke clearly, confidently, with no trace of the traumatized boy he'd been. Terry approached, grinning. He's amazing. Look at him go. He's come so far. Dean felt pride swell in his chest. So have you, man. You basically engineered the perfect takedown of your ex and her monster mom. Used their own tools against them. Dean shook his head. I just protected my son. Everything else was just consequence. The website they'd built was still up, but Dean rarely checked it anymore. It had served its purpose, exposing the truth, protecting Kyle, ensuring Stacy and Doris faced real accountability. Stacy's TikTok had been permanently banned. She'd moved to another state, working a regular job, attending therapy, slowly rebuilding a life outside the spotlight. She sent letters monthly. Kyle read about half of them and had started writing brief replies. Doris was in prison, her appeals denied. She would serve most of her sentence before parole was even considered. Kyle won third place at the science fair. He ran to Dean with the ribbon, beaming. "Dad, look, I won. I'm so proud of you." Dean hugged him tight. That evening, they celebrated with Kyle's favorite meal, burgers and fries, at their favorite local diner. Kyle talked excitedly about wanting to be an astronomer, about the upcoming soccer tournament, about normal kid things that filled Dean with quiet joy. As they drove home under the sunset, Kyle asked, "Dad, do you ever miss the old house?" "No," Dean said honestly. "This house is better. Because we built it together, just us, and nobody can take that away." Kyle nodded, satisfied with that answer, and turned on the radio. They drove home through the Colorado evening, past the courthouse where they'd won justice, past the therapist's office where Kyle was learning to heal, toward the small house where they'd built something neither Stacy nor Doris could corrupt, a real home, based on trust and love and safety. Dean had gone from a father who missed the signs to one who'd moved heaven and earth to protect his child. He'd faced down his wife, his mother-in-law, the courts, and public opinion. He'd used evidence, strategy, and the very platforms they'd weaponized against Kyle to ensure justice was served. But more than revenge, more than legal victories, Dean had given Kyle something precious, the knowledge that he was worth fighting for, that he deserved safety and love, and that asking for help when someone hurts you isn't weakness, it's strength. In the rearview mirror, Dean watched Kyle singing along to the radio, carefree and happy. This was victory, not the court documents or the prison sentences or the destroyed influencer career. This, Kyle laughing, healing, thriving, was everything that mattered. And Dean would spend the rest of his life making sure Kyle never forgot he was safe, he was loved, and he would always have someone in his corner. The end came not with dramatic confrontation, but with quiet contentment. Some battles were won not through destruction, but through protection. Dean had learned that lesson well. As they pulled into the driveway of their home, Kyle grabbed his science fair ribbon and bounded toward the door, already planning where to hang it. Dean followed, locking the car, checking that the gate was secure, small habits that had become ritual. Inside, their house was warm and bright. Kyle's drawings covered the refrigerator. Photos of better times decorated the walls. A calendar showed upcoming soccer games and therapy appointments and normal family life. Dean had won, not because he'd destroyed his enemies, though they'd faced justice, but because he'd saved his son and built something better from the wreckage. And in the end, that was the only victory that mattered. This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks for your time. If you enjoy this story, please subscribe to this channel. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you there.